Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another Mortal Kombat video. Now today, with us still talking about lost, cut or cancelled characters within the series, I thought that what better video could I make after talking about all of these singular individuals than to actually touch on a series of games that never quite came to be. A series that was quite ambitious in its foundation, and one that many, narratively, hold up in quite high acclaim. Mortal Kombat Mythologies, a game released in 1997 spearheaded by the original Sub-Zero, that was in fact actually designed to start off a spin-off series of sorts, serving as origin stories and background development, giving real foundation to the series, streamlining a lot of narrative events to create a cohesive story. But with that said, here we are 2.5 decades later, with no actual official sequel. So, in today's video, we will be doing a deep dive and analysis of what actually became of Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Why did it falter so hard? What was the supposed planned future for the series? And what characters were actually considered for it? As well as the ultimate fate of the series moving forward. Because whilst this game was fundamentally very important to Sub-Zero's character, behind the scenes, from a developer standpoint, Mythologies would look to be the first of many issues plaguing the studio that would inevitably lead to one of the series' figureheads, John Tobias, to later leave the studio. So, with that in mind and everything mentioned here, as always, quick reminder that if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it does go a really long way in supporting the channel. And hey, feel free to subscribe if you want to stick around to see more content. Anyway, let's dive right into things. Now, Mortal Kombat Mythologies is an extremely important point in the series, as it really was no longer in its creative infancy, and at this point really did have a firm clutch on the cultural zeitgeist, as Mortal Kombat itself had its own live-action movies, action figures, and hell, even a Broadway show. To say it was an icon of this time period would simply be an understatement. It was everywhere. But to maintain that relevancy, as well as enrich that world with its colourful characters, creative genius and mind behind the series, John Tobias, really believed that now was the perfect time and opportunity to sit down and really develop some of those characters here. As Mortal Kombat 1 to 3 concluded the Outworld Earthrealm trilogy, and Tobias himself had set up the events of Mortal Kombat 4 behind the scenes, using characters like Noob Saibot to serve as a catalyst between the two games. And this would really pay off in a big way for Mythologies, as Noob himself would be the main protagonist of the game, under much similar yet different colours, as Sub-Zero. So the plan and setup for Mortal Kombat Mythologies didn't come out the blue, and was set up to enrich both the first Sub-Zero's character, whilst also setting up the events of the fourth installment. It was essentially doing double duty, acting as a fair bit of fan service, whilst also acting as a prequel for the fourth installment. So on paper, Mythologies had really been set up to be something special, and its creation was kind of a miracle in a way, as there were only 9 people working on this game, already including John Tobias himself. However, the best of intentions would not be largely reflective of the game's quality, because to say that Mythologies was brutally difficult would most certainly be quite the understatement, as this game would be absolutely ruthless in how it treated the player. Plus, it really didn't help that at the time, 3D models were really popularized. Thus, the digitized use of actors really did feel like a relic of the past. Especially when you take into mind that MK4 did also use 3D models. And then you pair it up with unbelievably brutal gameplay, and it's understandable why this game was panned so heavily by both fans and critics alike. So don't be fooled, whilst it is held up in rather high acclaim now, the feelings and sentiment towards it was extremely different at the time, whilst the narrative was most certainly praised, as this was the first MK game that really enriched the world. In order to experience that story and narrative, you had to get through that gameplay, and that was the real problem behind it all. Due to this poor and negative reception, all plans for a strictly Mythology spin-off would actually wind up being cancelled. And while spin-offs weren't off the table, as they would begin development on Mortal Kombat Special Forces after, it did feel like a soft rebrand for what John Tobias had envisioned. You see, the plan after making Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero was to then turn his gaze to two other fan-beloved characters, the Shaolin monk Liu Kang and the monstrous henchman of Shao Kahn, Baraka, with again both envisioned as origin stories to enrich the background of each of these characters. But with the failure of Mythologies, it seems like all of these ideas were completely swept aside, with the series instead steering towards more of a special forces focused game. Whether or not this creative decision was chosen by him or is part of studio interference is left relatively unknown, but seeing as John Tobias left in the middle of Special Forces, the writing is kind of on the wall for this one, as it does look like the disintegration of the Mythology series may have been a contributing factor to John Tobias leaving, as there was rumours around this time about MK4 having poor working conditions, and Tobias himself having gone down on record saying that he left due to creative differences and new opportunities. Thus, when he left, the creative vision of Mythologies would leave alongside him, ending after a singular installment. But this wouldn't be Tobias's last time with the franchise, because whilst there is a very terminally online consensus that Ed Boon and John Tobias may be on some kind of bad terms, they are still friends, and do maintain a healthy work relationship, because whilst he never officially returned, he would play a hand in the creation of the tie-in spin-off comic for Mortal Kombat vs DC Universe. So with all of these contributing factors in mind, it could be believed that maybe it was Midway and its management that did wind up shooting itself in the foot. As whilst Mythologies is frowned upon from a gameplay perspective, it's very clear that a lot of time and love was put in the game narratively. So, with that said and everything covered here, that has been it for why Mortal Kombat Mythologies was cancelled. And this video was very bittersweet for me, because whilst I always do find it fun to kind of look under the hood of what happened, it's sad to see such creative and rich ideas cast aside in favour of something that not even its creator envisioned. However, even so, without John Tobias' departure, we wouldn't have gotten the 3D era, a series of games that by all intents and purposes actually kind of carries on Tobias' vision, as that series of games is monumentous in terms of world building and expanding on the foundation that was laid before it. So it is a bittersweet pill to swallow, but it's nice to see that Tobias' legacy most certainly lived on. Now with that said, which character from the original timeline would you have loved to have seen get a Mythologies episode? What would you like to have seen them delve into or touch upon? Please do comment down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. But for now everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.